So it is Tuesday, and today I'm feeling better than I was feeling yesterday. I ended up being kind of like in bed the whole day because I was like too, tired to do anything. I would stand up, and after a few seconds, I would start getting not dizzy, but like I would feel the urge to kind of like sit down again. So that is kind of like why yesterday I was kind of like MIA. But today I'm already feeling better. I'm not at 100%, but for example, yesterday I had like so many assignments, so much school stuff for me to get through, and I wasn't able to kind of like get through anything. But today I've been able to kind of like finish one of my assignments, and I'm already halfway through another one. And there's this third one, which is the one that so far I'm kind of like the most insecure about because I don't necessarily know where I'm going with it. But I'm gonna fuck around and find out. You could argue, and that is, oh, I just realized something. Because we kind of like had bought tickets to go to the movies, my parents and I, and we didn't know whether I would be able to kind of like attend. But like right now, I've already been I know that it doesn't sound like a lot, but like I'm on top of, I'm on my feet for like a minute or so, and that is in itself kind of like a victory. So I'm kind of like looking forward to, I don't know, I think that this is going to make sense for me. Let me try again, because like I was physically tired, but I was also mentally tired, which is why I couldn't really get anything done. So right now, so far, I've already been kind of like on my feet for a minute and something, and I'm not feeling dizzy, I'm not feeling weak. So I think I'm getting better. I do think that I won't be able to kind of like be here for like an hour. That is going to be a little too much for me, because also it feels that like my physical tiredness, it kind of like it leads to like mental tiredness. So if I'm like on my feet for too long, then my brain starts to get kind of like all mushy and stuff. I can't really do anything. But I until like I get to that point, because I feel like I can finish at least one of my assignments, like before I go, before we go out, if we're going to go out, because as I said, there is a chance that is not going to happen. But I do think that I'm doing better. Also, I'm just kind of like thinking, because I buy a lot of stuff for like my mystery client, mystery shopper thing, and we're going to like a different mall, so maybe I could go there, go to the stores, and see if there's anything worthwhile. Because like I never bought like those items to kind of like to stay with them. So I'm kind of I don't know. But basically back to kind of like the whole astrology thing. Once again, I'm not really a believer. I don't expect to be a believer. I'm using this as kind of like a self self growth tool. And once again, like the reason, the fact that I feel the need to kind of like make this this disclaimer, it does show that I'm still not 100% at a point where I don't care what people think. So let me work on that. But today I'll be today we're going to be looking at Capricorn, because my Venus and my Mars are Capricorn, so is my Neptune and my third and fourth ascendant. So that is that's a lot of that. So let me go to Capricorn. Also, like, what is like, I think Venus and Mars is sexuality, right? Mars, oh yeah. Let's see. In astrology, Venus and Mars represent the cosmic love, restoring how we feel, how we love Venus, and how we pursue desire, Mars. Oh, interesting. So Venus dictates attraction, romance, and values, while Mars rules passion, energy, and sexual nature. Together, they define an individual's romantic style and chemistry in relationships, with their zodiac placements showing how they flirt and fight. Interesting. Like I guess like I thought I wouldn't be as interested in this because where's Capricorn? Okay, here's Capricorn. Because like it was just romance, but it's not just that. It shows us more. So anyways, so we have Capricorn, which is the constellation, is a little something like this. It's like a smile of sorts. So it is the seagull. Oh, is this the one that has kind of like a weird yeah, I don't know enough, but I do remember that in one episode of Ink Master there was this, I guess like it was a seagull, and yeah, I'm remembering that. So anyway, so it's December 21st to January 20th, which means that nobody here, like in my house, like it is one of this, because my brother is January 22nd, my dad's February 21st, my mom is March 21st. So basically I think that is like 3 different sides that like every month they kind of like have me, but this one is in between, because my birthday then is kind of like the one with the longest distance, right? Because I'm in November and they're still in December and January, so yeah, my brother, he is 10 years, 2 months, 1 day, 3 hours, and 38 minutes younger than me. And this is something that I've always made a point of knowing, but I will say that I used to think it was 36 minutes because, I thought I was born at 5 a.m., but I was born 4:58. So yeah, so it's 38 minutes, but that doesn't mean nothing. So element is Earth, it is a cardinal thing, and the ruling planet is Saturn. So Capricorn trait. Just a reminder that we're looking at how I flirt and how I fight here. So Capricorn, full-grown adult since age 6. I don't know about that. I feel like maybe my trauma, specifically the one from when I was 13, kind of like aged me up a little bit, but I don't think that is true for everything. The responsible friend. Don't think so. Motivated by duty. Wow, that's intense. Takes a while to warm up to people. No. Reassesses any emotion that gets in the way of success. Not represses any emotions. This last trait reminds me of when I was, younger. Not so much these days. I've learned to kind of like accept my emotions and embrace them and not, be stuck up, because of things. I will say this motivated by duty. It feels very intense. Like it's the person who I want to write about, like what about this character? How are they going to kind of like go about their merry way every day if they're motivated by duty, kind of like Ned Stark, that type of thing. So yeah, I will say that the fact that I'm considering writing some type of character, this type of character is already a growth, it's a change in how I've always been, because I think that like Ned Stark is a character that really changed the way I saw characters like that, because I used to think that they were boring and annoying, and I mean, like, definitely there are moments where you're just like, why are you doing this and doing that, Ned? But I enjoyed reading about him. I think the fact that he dies also, sorry, spoiler alert, one of like most notorious spoilers, but like I think that the fact that he kind of like perishes because of his morals also helps, because it feels like because sometimes it feels like when you're in a certain world, whether it is a book, a game, a movie, characters are rewarded for kind of like certain types of behavior, and as a reader you're just kind of like, no, even if I like the character, like I want, hold on, even if I like the character, actions have consequences. It's not that I think that there should be consequences. It's just that there are, there are exceptions. Yeah, that's just life for you. But anyways, takes a while to warm up to people. If we're looking at this, in the context of flirtations and fighting, I don't know. I feel like it does not take me a lot to warm up to people. Particularly, I think if we establish, like what we're doing, because if you have somebody and you're just kind of like moving along without, any clear indication as to kind of like where you're getting there, it kind of like annoys me to have to kind of like put up with a facade or whatever for too long. But at the same time, yeah, no, I don't know. I don't think that it takes me long to kind of like warm up to people. In general, there are definitely exceptions, but and I don't know, I feel like this is particularly a trait that I don't have any like too much to talk about. It's just like, okay, it could be, it could not be. Now, the responsible friend, I think that when I was younger, I kind of was the responsible friend, but I didn't want to be the responsible friend. I wanted to kind of like just be, I wanted to kind of like be, I guess, like the crazy friend, or the, like the popular friend, or the cool friend, and that was never really me. And my upbringing didn't help, because as I mentioned before, I was brought up in this religious context in which in which like I wasn't kind of like giving many opportunities for me to do something crazy or cool or popular or whatever. But yeah, so anyways, so famous Capricorns, I don't care. Oh, Martin Luther King Jr., interesting. Timothée Chalamet, Michelle Obama, Dr. Parton, Mao Zedong, Edgar Allan Poe, don't care. So best careers: accountant, lawyer, landlord, Sisyphus, elementary school homeowner. They always had like kind of like a quirky one, but yeah. So I have considered, because my mom is an accountant, so I have considered studying accounting. Ended up not being, the one I'm pursuing, but like I did consider that. But I also think that I would have been a great lawyer if I had born, if I had like less traumas, because basically I feel like that there's like a lot of studying that is necessary, that's kind of like required for, like you to succeed as lawyer, and a lot of studying. And I feel like at this point in time I'm not really willing to do that. If this was like a decade ago, I think I would have maybe gotten, at a point where I would have been better at this. But like right now, am I willing to learn all those laws? Not so much. But I do step as a landlord. I don't know, I think that I wouldn't be an awful landlord, but yeah, I don't know. I think that landlords get a bad rep. Not that they don't deserve it or whatever. It's just that I don't know. I'm not elementary school home under. That is an interesting one. I don't know. I don't think any of these are like my professions. But anyways, about Capricorn. Do Capricorns like attention? Capricorns aren't consumed by the need for attention, but are not immune to it. They simply don't indulge in attention-seeking behavior. Capricorns don't want attention for their looks or style or ingenuity. They don't want to be admired, but they do want to be respected. They don't care to be the center of attention. Instead, it's like they need to prove their own ability to themselves, to plow through adversity with blinders on until they reach success. I don't relate to this a whole lot because while like I don't think that I'm ruled by a desire to be like in the center of attention. I mean they're kind of like they're not immune to it, but I do think that I want it a little bit more actively, and that is something that I should consider. I want to be, and also like I do want to be respected, but I also want to be admired. Like I also want this, but also like we're talking about this in terms of this being Venus and Mars, which is kind of like how you interact with people. And I will say that this also does not to me resemble how I am in those areas. This doesn't really seem like I feel like particularly when I'm flirting, like that is an error. That is a moment that I kind of like allow myself to indulge in admiration. Like if you want to get to me, like that is a way to do it. And maybe I should change that. Maybe that is not like the best, but I don't see this one happening. I don't see this being kind of like the case, because as I said, I'm gonna call myself an attention whore, but I also I don't despise attention. I think we all want recognition, and attention is a way of like being recognized, right? But anyways, Capricorns are constantly competing with themselves. They do want praise, though. They don't praise though. Praise is a simple acknowledgement of a job well done. Praise is a pat on the back. They use it as validation to compensate for general feelings of incompetence and inferiority. Oh my god. Now this second paragraph, I relate to it to some extent. The part of like competing with myself. I talked about before how it's always like me versus the person I was in the past, the person who I was, the person who I wish I was. It was just kind of like constantly me with myself more over than like me with other people. So I relate to this. And I do want praise. As I said, like I do want praise, and praise is a simple acknowledgement of a job well done. I don't need anybody to throw me a parade or anything like that, but I do want my effort and my capacity, my competence to be kind of like recognized. And this does have something to do with like feelings of incompetence and inferiority, which is interesting because for the longest time I wouldn't really acknowledge that like I felt that way. But in recent years I've been more open, because the way for me to kind of like work through this is by kind of like acknowledging, admitting that like that's kind of like how things go. But yeah, so I do relate more to this. What kind of person is a Capricorn? Capricorns are masters of discipline. Yeah, that is okay. No. I think I used to be a more disciplined person when I was younger. But like this past decade, it has just come to show that I am not a disciplined person. I just fooled myself thinking I was because of the rigorous structure that I had in my life. But once that rigorous structure was gone, I ended up just really falling apart. Just picking up my bean so I can throw away my hairs. But anyways, so the ringing of the hand, the constant reminders, the exacting extra structure, the ever-increasing goals, the tidal wave of self-criticism that lasts forever. They are the ultimate perfectionists. They can also be absorbed by their own internal monologue that becomes that it becomes impossible to get them to look away from themselves. Okay, like this is me. Like they are the ultimate perfectionists. I don't know, I'm not so much of a perfectionist anymore, but I used to be when I was, younger, and that was a problem, like truly so, not only in the way that you say when you're at a job interview, but yeah, so they can be true, so absorbed in their internal monologue that it becomes impossible to get them to look away from themselves. I feel sane by this one, sentence. I don't know if this would apply to my Venus in Mars, because I feel like in that regard, I'm not as, kind of. I think I'm kind of like self-absorbed in the sense that I spend a lot of like my time, in my head, and it's kind of, yeah, and it is what it is. I don't have anything else to say. But I will say that the reading of the hands, yes, the constant reminders, yes, the exacting structure, the ever-increasing goals, and the tide of self-criticism that lasts forever. And they also relate to this. This kind of like also has to do with my fantasies, and the fact that sometimes I have fantasies instead of plans, instead of goals. So that's kind of like a problem that I accept, and I'm trying to work through this. They're incredibly pragmatic. Am I though? Not sure. Capricorns are rule followers with a highly developed moral compass. Not so sure about that. To be fair, you could argue that like we all have our compass, our internal compass, and just because mine doesn't look like whatever, like what would be expected, for me, it doesn't mean that it isn't there. So there's that. So I don't know, but I also don't think that I am a rule follower with. I kind of am. I sometimes like I have moments where I break the rules. For example, the other day, I think I mentioned there was a situation in which I did something that is kind of like objectively wrong, and I was feeling like shit, and I was feeling like okay, but because basically I did something wrong and I completely got away with it. So it was. And I felt like okay, but I also do feel like what was kind of like in my head was like, what if there is, what there's like consequences to this, what if like this gets in the way of like me doing something else in the future, so that was kind of like me at that point in time. But yeah, so I don't know if this one particularly applies to me. From a young age, it is impressed upon them that their whole sense of worth and meaning is based on their ability to hunker down and force their way to the finish line. Yeah, I don't think that is, my parents have always, like kind of like stimulated me and kind of like made me kind of like complete, so for example, finish what I started, but like sometimes there's also room for you to realize that, like this thing that you started is not going to get anywhere. But for example, I was part of like a lot of like extracurricular activities when I was younger, and my parents were basically kind of like, okay, so you signed up for like a year, you're gonna do this in a year, and then in the next year, if you realize this is not what you want, then you let it go. But like you're going to kind of like push yourself to a certain point for you to realize whether or not like that's really you. Okay. Anyway, so their drive to succeed is a reflection of their fear of failure. Their most stressful time, the most stressful time in a Capricorn's life is when they question their own authority. Okay, this sounds interesting thing for you to write about. I don't know if like this is something I relate to, but I will say that like that the drive to succeed is I do think that when I'm talking about myself as a teenager, in my late teens, my early 20s and all that, like this was very true. I was very scared of failure and of being a failure, of failing, like the things that I tried to do, to the point that I think it kind of like it paralyzed me. So I couldn't really escape, like my head couldn't escape the place I set up for myself, because I was kind of concerned that okay, like looks better. I was kind of concerned that like I couldn't stop moving basically, and that just made me very sick, because you have to take breaks for you to achieve anything, for you to do anything, and I wasn't really taking breaks. I was kind of like stressed the whole time, and I was kind of like I didn't know how to break free from like my own the chains that I chained myself to. Nobody was kind of like pushing me that way, but like that is kind of like how I read the situation. And to this day, I don't know, I feel like they're so, I kind of like, I really went all the way in terms of kind of like, I would either get as well, die trying. And I didn't really have to do that, like there's so much burnout, and I'm like, why? I didn't need that. Like, it didn't add anything. Which, to the contrary, it just got in the way of like me doing more things in the future. But I was very stuck in my ways, as I said. So there's that. So I do like the sentence. The most stressful time in a Capricorn's life is when they question their own authority, because okay, I think they mean something else. Let me continue reading. When a Capricorn is in a position of power, they are most stable. When they put in a position where they have to cater to someone else's agenda, they can become a little unhinged. I would say I do relate to this. If I'm kind of like doing my own things, if I'm in control, talked about before, like this very intense, urge and need I have for control, and it's very. I think I'm doing better these days than I used to when I was younger, but it is something that I have to take into account. I can't, forget this. But like being in control is, I don't know if it's whether it is the best thing for me, but it is, the situation in which I am the most comfortable, and that kind of like is worth something. You could argue that you need to kind of like put yourself into like some uncomfortable situations for you to kind of like for you to grow, for you to work on yourself. So I do think that there is room for that. But I do agree with the thing of like, if I have to cater to somebody else's agenda, I can become a little unhinged, because I stopped caring. I stopped giving a fuck, because I think that the reason why I do things in certain ways, because I believe that's pretty much what I have to be like for me to succeed in life in whatever it is that I'm trying to do. So if I don't have, I'm not having like that kind of reward, then there's no reason for me to kind of like maintain certain power structures. So I can kind of like become a little ruthless, because I have nothing to lose, basically is what it feels like. You always have something to lose, but sometimes like there are situations that make you feel like there's nothing there, so you just go for it indiscriminately. Capricorns collect responsibility, and they are always seem to take it all on. I don't know if I do this so much anymore, but I think when I was younger, like in my teenage years, my early teens, I think that this is something that I would do, but I wouldn't really succeed at that. I would kind of like take responsibility for myself, but then I would crumble under the pressure, and then I would end up, like being exactly what I didn't want to be, which in this case is basically useless. I end up feeling useless, and that was kind of like the way that it kind of like works. But I will say that when I'm thinking about my tactics when I was a teenager, when I was like in middle school, it is interesting because I haven't pulled any of that shit, recently. I'm actually, like working on, and kind of like on working on myself and on kind of like doing things instead of just living in my head. So I am making some type of progress. I should. It's been more like almost 20 years. Okay, not 20 years, okay, because I was 8. So 15 years, for sure, has come to pass, and I should do better. And I am doing much better. But there are some things that you look back and you're just like, oh, I still do this shit. Like, this is still an issue I have. And it can be kind of frustrating, but it's not the end of the world. Basically, kind of like what I've come to understand. One day after the other. So, I'm gonna try, I'm still doing that. Like, let me live in peace, basically. So, anyways. Capricorns need to be the one to fix everything. Responsibility is their natural state. They have a can-do attitude. Capricorns are both the martyrs and the champions. They are the guardians and the judges, the team captains, the chief of chiefs, the general, the leader. But even as they lead, sorry, I don't need glasses usually to read this close, but like my side is a little blurry, so sorry about that. Captains, chiefs, but even as they lead the charge, Capricorns can feel like the loneliest people in the world. They wish to be completely self-sufficient because they are so scared of depending on others. Oh my god, I feel like if I like if I was a teenager, like literally 15 years ago when I was 13, I think that I would possibly want to be a Capricorn, because I really like this thing of like them being the leaders. Also like the thing of being the martyrs and the champions is so something I do relate to some extent. I think I put myself in that position before. I don't do that so much anymore, but when I was younger, I was definitely putting myself on the pedestal, just for, it's interesting because like with pedestal that I was kind of like falling from. So I don't know exactly what my brain was, thinking at that point in time. But it is interesting that they are the martyr or the champion, because it's the two sides of the same coin. If it works out, you're a champion. If it doesn't, and you kind of like crucified for it, then there you're a martyr. But yeah, so I don't know if I would say that responsibility is my natural state, but once again, 13-year-old me will probably think so. They can do attitude. I think that I'm too pessimistic to kind of like have a can do attitude. But lately, this last year, I've been becoming more, more optimistic, not in an unregulated way. Like, no, I'm still kind of like aware of things, but it is kind of like, it is a difference. It does make a difference, and I think my life is improving because of that. So they collect responsibility. Don't relate to this right now, but like 2011, he would relate to this, or at least he would want to relate to this. And they always seem to take it out on. I feel like this is it's something that even these days it's a risk that I felt too. Sometimes I just get very easily, not easily overwhelmed, but like sometimes instead of like looking at things as just being small installments in my life, I look at all them all at once, and then I start to kind of like fall apart, which is something that today I have a better perspective. Yesterday I was kind of like, I was almost despairing, because it was like I have all these things to do. When will I be able to do them? Will I be able to do them? Will I crumble before that? And I haven't crumbled so far, and as I said, I've already did one of my assignments and I'm halfway through the second one, so very happy about that. So that Capricorns need to be the one to fix everything. Once again, it's something I wanted, because I kind of like, but I don't know, I wouldn't say mine isn't like the most spectacular, savior complex that's ever, happened. Like I think that, I don't think that is, the case for me. But I will say that I do have a part of me. There is a part of me, I do have like this little voice in my head that is kind of like the wants to be, maybe what I want is attention, I don't know, but like I think it's more than that, because I do want to be, I want to save, I want to fix things, so I want to be a fixer, I want to be a savior. And I feel like that maybe like I want that not directly, I want that because that would make me feel useful, that would make me feel like I was like I was productive, like I was a productive member of society, like I was on the right track to get to like my future. And it is kind of like I don't know, it's kind of unbecoming of a person to kind of like to be so openly open about wanting this savior. But I kind of like I have to acknowledge this at some point if I want to no longer feel this way, because as I said, I don't want it for its sake. I don't want it to kind of like help people. I don't want it to make things better. I want to fix things that are like problems to me, or like people with whom I relate to in some capacity. People who like we're the same demographic. So it means a lot of different things. It can mean age, gender, political affiliation, religious affiliation, sexuality, all these things. Like race, ethnicity, culture, like all those factors that like people break down when you're doing like a census analysis. But yeah, so I'm not doing this with like good intentions. I just want to feel a certain way about myself, to feel that I'm useful, to feel that I'm competent, to feel that I'm capable. Because if I can achieve the things that I want, I can at least achieve something, and that something is going to be kind of like a placeholder until I get to a point where I can actually achieve like the things. So there's that. But so responsibility is a natural state, not so much. They have a can-do attitudes, also not so much. Capricorns are both Mars and champions. Already been through this. They are the guardians and the judges, the team captains, the chief of chiefs, the general, the leader. Uh, but yeah, so like all are these are things that I wanted to be, which is pretty much why I say that when I was younger, I might have wanted to be have this particular astrology sign, because it was kind of like catering to like my ideas of being kind of like in control, being the leader. I really wanted to be a leader, and it could be of literally anything. This is something that is so funny when I look back, because I remember when I was involved in the church, and they used to have the cell groups, like the small groups that you would meet every week, and then you would read the Bible and have a little study, and then you pray and all that. And I kind of like started, because but for you to be in that position, you have to take kind of like classes. And I started taking classes not so much because like I wanted to kind of like, I know, be used by God, but because that was the leader part of that. Like, I want to be a cell group leader, and that was a way to do it. And I feel like this just explains like so many things from like when I was younger. Like, why is that I aligned with certain ideas? Why did I defend certain ideologies? It was all because like I was kind of like hoping that by getting intertwined with that, I would get to this point where I would be a leader of what, whatever I'm taking. I mean, I basically would take anything at that point. But anyway, so like, they're the loneliest people in the world. So they wish to be completely self-sufficient because they're so scared of depending on others. I will say that this has defined me at some point, at a certain point in time, but it was not, a perfect identification, because I was still relying on people. I wasn't at a point where like I was completely, like out there. So it was very, very telling, like of, me as a person, that how kind of like contradictory it is, that on one hand I was rejecting everybody and pushing everybody away, but on the other hand I was kind of like depending on people. I couldn't, for example, financially, I wasn't at a point where I had a steady income, and it was the beginning of like me being where I am at right now. And it's kind of like an interesting way for me to, I don't know, basically I wanted to be self-sufficient, but I hated myself because I wasn't. So, and this was something that was kind of like, whenever I looked, like it just brought that to attention. Like I was looking at my finances, I wasn't like so self-sufficient. I'm thinking, and the thing is that money really does permeate everything else, because for example right now, and since 2022, I've been studying in like state universities, federal universities, and just basically like I'm not paying for tuition. That you don't pay for tuition when you study at one of these institutions. And so like I have like much more liberty, I have much more freedom, I am at much more liberty to just be whatever I want, but because I hadn't really had, so like the reality like back then was that I would have, I couldn't pay for college, so I had to rely on my parents to pay for my college. And that was in itself, I don't know, it just made me feel very useless, very incompetent. So it's just it's something that, so there was like this conflict in my head where I was trying to be assertive and kind of like confident in myself, but I couldn't because of everything else that was happening. Because as I said, I didn't have a steady income, so like I was living with my parents, and I was like depending on them to kind of like give me money. And I was 18, so I felt like, okay, yeah, I should like be in a better place, I should kind of like be more independent. But I didn't really know how to get more independent. I was kind of like stuck in this in this loop of self-hatred. And then because of the self-hatred, I started fantasizing. So I would be, at some point I would fantasizing that I was the most independent, capable, competent, untamable person in the world. And at the other moment, I would just look at myself and be like, this is not me. So that comparison between who I wanted to be and who I fantasized I was and who I really was, like that was there's a conflict there. And it kind of like persisted. It's interesting because like how I projected this onto other people. So I felt that way, so I felt like everybody else felt that way about me. And then I came to understand that like they don't. They didn't. It was just me. And that, but like I feel like by the time I realized this, it was already too late, because I had already done the whole self-hatred thing for too long. But yeah, so I want to be self-sufficient, and I still want to be self-sufficient, but I've learned to kind of like let people into my life. I've learned to kind of like process things. So basically, I'm okay with like needing help, and I'm okay with accepting help, because that is also, you know, a part of it. Because one thing for you to acknowledge that like you're not going to figure this out, the different thing for you to accept that, you know, to share that with somebody and kind of like allow them into your world, to get to that point. So yeah, so the lonely part. I think that I don't feel lonely particularly. I think that I'm surrounded by people, and I'm really happy with the people I'm surrounded by, and I am, yeah, I'm glad to be a part of their lives too. And but I will say that for the longest time I was very lonely. You know, I was very you know, in these years where I felt useless and incompetent and incapable and all the other words, they're pretty much synonyms to this. I really, like I said, like I struggled to kind of like have people, so I kind of like just pushed everybody away, and as a consequence, I was alone. And today I look back and I'm like, yeah, like I definitely could have used, you know, somebody else, could have used the help, you know, of, you know, somebody here, but you know, it's already in the past. I don't want to, you know, keep reliving that. So Capricorns in sex, love, and romance. So this is most relevant to Capricorn, Venus, and Mars. You know, so that is the part that is for me. Although Capricorn suns may identify with some traits. So how to seduce a Capricorn? Oh, we're back. We're so back. It takes a Capricorn a while to develop a crush. You'll probably have to become their best friend and drop subtle hints slowly over the years until one day they realize that they were in love with you all along. Then they will marry you. Okay, like that is, I don't think this is particularly helpful to anybody. But I will say that maybe that is pretty much what I'm lacking. You know, I'm just have to look at my life and be like, this person, but I don't have anyone, you know, in my life that, you know, I can kind of like feel this way towards. So, oh, I guess like that is a fail. But you know, at least I'm open. You know, I'm open, as I said. You know, it could even be fun. You know, and I'm open to fun. So let's try it. Are Capricorns good and bad? Capricorns try hard to be good at whatever they do. This can be dispassionate, maybe they can be. This can be dispassionate, maybe mechanical. They may view sex as a math question, slightly disconcerted from current undercurrents, but generally responsive to criticism. I would like to, you know, think I'm good, that I respond positively to criticism, you know. I will say that the part of like wanting to be good at everything is, you know, something that, oh, I have like this tattoos to show. It is more than and less than, which I got when I was 19, because that was the point where I just finally kind of like accepted that I'll be good at some things and bad at others. I'll be better at some things than other people are going to be better than me at some other things. So, you know, this is how long I've been kind of like struggling with this concept. But I will say that I don't know, I feel like when I was younger, I really wanted to pride myself in being, you know, good and bad. These days, I don't really care, you know, to be completely honest. Like, maybe I'm just too selfish, you know, I'm just like, I'm trying to have a good time, not caring for, you know, the other party. Which, you know, is something that, if that is the case, I should definitely work on, you know, because I don't want to be that type of person. But, you know, it is interesting because, you know, I prided myself in that, and like, I really don't care anymore. You know, I think the main thing, you know, when it comes to, you know, sex, is that you have to be open-minded, you know, but also open to criticism, as was kind of established here, because you can work on yourself, you can get better at things. So I don't know, I think also but I will say that maybe my patience has also run short, because I've always had this attitude of like, okay, maybe you're not the best right now, but we can make you be better. And I don't have, I guess, like the patience for that anymore. I kind of like want somebody who's already, you know, ready. But if I were to kind of like, you know, there was somebody, you know, who I wanted, you know, specifically, because, you know, like that's the thing about, you know, these interactions. Sometimes it's going to be kind of like right place, right time. It's not going to be based on anything other than that. So, you know, you kind of like you get what you can, you know, what is there, you know, to be taken. And that is kind of how life works. But sometimes there is intention that is intense. You know, like you want to be kind of like that. You want that person specifically. So you can. I mean, I don't know. I just think that if I specifically wanted to be with somebody, I would have the patience to kind of like help, and I also have the patience with myself to kind of like do better, but also to help them, you know, do better. And that's that. Sex and romance are seen as competition. Sex is not about feelings, but mastering a skill. In the game of love, the winner is determined by the ability of one person to fulfill the other person's fantasies. Okay, I think I want somebody like this. Yeah, Capricorns can be sophisticated lovers because they have a good sense of humor. They know how to be gentle and nurturing when the situation calls for it. Cannot, I think so. Because of their single-mindedness, they are slow to lose interest and can be a little too intense at times. I don't know. I don't know if though they're slow to lose interest, not so much, but a little bit too intense. That is definitely something that I've been called for, intense in this context, and I don't disagree because ultimately, like I think instead of like trying to change myself in terms of like what I desire, I think it's been more helpful for me to try to find people who fit well into like that mode, so everybody can be happy and contented in the end. I would say I'm very much a firm believer that there is a solution that's going to leave everybody happy. Naturally, there are some conflicts that like your body to like to bigger world issues then not so much, but I don't know, I think in my daily life I try to find, okay, I'm here, I have this perspective, but I'm going to I have this perspective, and like from this point where I'm standing, like there isn't really a solution, but a solution exists, we just have to find it basically. So do Capricorns fall in love easily? Capricorns don't fall in love easily. It often takes some effort. Love is about making a strategic emotional investment. They don't like feeling emotionally dependent on anyone else, so they often keep their distance. They can be awkward when it comes to romance. Capricorns can be awkward around expressing their feelings. It takes them a while to understand what their feelings are. Their romantic exploits are almost platonic partnerships. I feel like this kind of like defined me right now. Like I'm more in the platonic, area of life. I mean, that's technically always been the case. I never really, as I said, I never really had a relationship, never wanted to have a relationship, because that is, something that sometimes, like people, you tell people like, oh, I've never been in a relationship, and they can kind of like assume that it is because the opportunity hasn't arisen, which at least in my case is not the case. It's just that I never really had the desire. So, but yeah, but I do, so they're saying that the Capricorns don't fall in love easily. So maybe, like that is, that's why I don't think this is the answer, but like it does align with my life. You have to take some effort, and I think that people in a way, you have to find the people that match you. So for example, I'm not the most consistent with maintaining contact, so you need people who are also inconsistent or they don't mind that. People who, for example, have like a lot of friends. Personally, I don't want to be a person's only friend. I know some people might find find that appealing, but for me, no. Like I want my friends to have like many friends, so that when I'm not available, they can go and like interact with them, without having to rely on me so much. So yeah. Also, like, am I awkward when it comes to romance? And honestly, that is a very possible thing to kind of like be the case. I have had no experience, so like if I did find somebody ever who would I want to get involved with, like that could be something, like there could be something there for us to kind of like explore. But because I have no experience in that area, because also like I tend to be a very straightforward person, so, but just because like I don't really care, so I'm just putting myself out there. If it's a no, it's a no, and you move on to the other person. If you say yes, then you move on to the next steps. But when it comes to romance, like I don't know if I think I might get self-conscious, because I know of so many different things that people do that make me uncomfortable when it comes to in terms of romance. So I think that like I would be overtly conscious of the fact that like I might make somebody else uncomfortable. So I think there would be a lot of like awkwardness in that regard. They might not express their affections overtly, but Capricorns are very sentimental. They value family, tradition, stability. I do not value tradition at all. Like not even close. Nope. Stability, yes. I mean, there are some. Because for example, financial stability. Like I really value that. I don't want that to change. But some other things, like I kind of like I'm okay with having them up in the air. So stability also, I think it's like financial stability and mental stability. Like these are the two. They're like really big for me. So if these two are kind of like, they're okay, I think everything else can be unstable, and I still kind of like have a good time. Still keep on existing. So yeah, so I value that. That's the thing. I value family as in like the people before me. So like my parents, my brother, we are family unit. I don't really care having like a family of my own, having like a spouse and children. Like I will not have children. I used to be very much like I won't have a spouse because I never really had the desire. But as I mentioned, I'm open. Maybe spouse is too long. But partner, significant other. Like that is doable. Like that can kind of like last me a little while. I don't know. I feel like this whole thing has been convincing me that maybe I should be less guarded in this particular sense. I don't really know how exactly in my life I'm going to get to a point where I'll be meeting people, at least people who I will be interested in, because that is, a situation. But it is what it is. They want to build something real. I don't want to build something. I don't care about building something real. I mean, if you're talking about my novels, I want them to exist and to be kind of like, tangible. I want to kind of like touch them, but I don't need it to. I don't know. I don't know. They want to build something real. I don't need that. Maybe that's bad because if I don't have anything real. What I do have are my fantasies, and that is a no. I don't want that. So maybe I do want something real, but only as opposed to my fantasies. So. Capricorns want to be responsible for something, and for them, responsibility should be someone else is the most intimate act of all. Okay, I don't have any thoughts on this. Also, like, do I want to be responsible for something? And it's one of those things that I'm like, no. I think that when I was younger, I wanted to have something. So probably like a business. It was not really family or anything like that, but I wanted to have it, to take care of it, to look after it. But those desires have faded. I don't really, care. I think that the only tangible way in which this would make sense to me is if it kind of like existed as opposed to my fantasies. If it is existed in the real world in a way that I can kind of like, touch it and, care for it. Like it would help me, like develop as a person, to be kind of like at a different stage as opposed to where I am at right now. But, like it is still very, it's kind of like really, it's a very roundabout way of doing that. Like there are easier ways, there are easier things that I can do. So they're emotional. Okay, so they think that responsibility to someone else is the most intimate act of all. I think I could vibe with this. If somebody else doing this to me, I think that is kind of like how to have commitment. And it's a way to make commitments. Literally saying that love is the end result of this deep desire. This is beautiful, actually. I would vibe with somebody who had this approach to me. Like that would, that would be something that I would be kind of like, it would make sense. It would make sense. But anyway, so their emotional maturity can seem in their ability to harness their baser feelings into something constructive. Capricorn's disciplined natures are a necessity in the face of raw, animalistic sexual desire. Okay. Capricorn is to know they are grounded, but that does not mean they are sensitive to the warmth of another person's touch. It just means that they can control it. Can I control it? Like, that is a good question. I mean, like, have I controlled it? That is another one. Because of, like, what you can do and what you have done. Like, those are two different things. Sometimes there is some overlap for sure. But, in a lot of, other ways, there is a distance there. So right now, I'm thinking about, I think that I've been able to control it. I think that I've had a self-possessed version. But once again, maybe I just haven't had, like, an actual test yet. Like, I haven't really, met my match that way. So what do Capricorns find attractive? Capricorns do not want your mess. They admire other people who are self-sufficient, who inspire them in some way. Capricorns are motivated by respect. They are drawn to people who give them that sense that they know something or who have exceptional understanding of some arcane corner of the world. They will be impressed if you can speak to technical details or philosophical matters in depth. Capricorns want to be the ones to take the lead because they have a desire to control and command a situation. They want to direct the scene. They are attracted to people who are a bit bit on the loose side. I like the loose side. They're much more interested in people who are guarded, not really emotional or dramatic. I can be a dramatic person, so not judging by here. People who are more even killed. Capricorns are attracted to people who share the same value as them. At least respect those values. Like I would really have to know what your values are for me to know whether I would respect you or not. And that is kind of like, unnegotiable. Not negotiable, non-negotiable. But yeah, so they don't want your mess. I would say I relate to this. I feel like sometimes you can, listen to people gossip, something that is already there out there, and you're seeing that. And I don't mind kind of like listening to some of it, and kind of like finding the mess entertaining. But I also don't want the mess to be my reality. I want peace and quiet. I mean, I can be the opposite of peace and quiet sometimes, but I don't want other things to take away my peace. And I kind of like, I just need maybe just like me getting older, but like I need peace. I need to have a moment where I can work, where I can study. I can kind of like do the things, work on my hobbies, just do things that are important to me. And sometimes like this messiness gets in the way, and it's kind of hard because sometimes like you think that you cannot, sometimes things are not as one-sided as you may want to think. So you think that by kind of like removing yourself from the situation, you're gonna get to a point where like everything is you're gonna get to a point where everything is kind of where you're no longer involved. But that is not how that works. And these things, they can kind of like still affect your life. Because for example, sometimes like something happens online and you just go offline and suddenly it's not there. But there are consequences to things. So like something that happens online can end up affecting, for example, your professional life or something along those lines. So you have to kind of like be careful. And that's kind of, I was kind of like, I heard of an article today that's basically talking about how I guess like Gen Z kind of like sometimes is very tense because they don't want 3 seconds of their life to kind of like ruin everything for them. And I was kind of like thinking about that, and then like I'm not feeling tense about it, but at the same time, like I guess like I do care about the things I've always cared about, my words and how like they reach the people who are listening, not only the people who I'm directly talking to, but other people. So I don't know, I think for me it's already kind of like second nature to kind of like be mindful of the way you're talking. But every day I'm kind of like brought to the attention. I think it's because I'm getting old, because of like new things, they're kind of like problems, they're problematic. And it's kind of like an interesting point for you to be in, because like, okay, because not too long ago I know all the things that and how they could be problematic, and like right now just new things are coming up, and I'm like, okay, I don't I could get caught saying something like this and it would be really bad. But I don't know, also sometimes like I'm angry, and I'm aware that certain things are problematic, but I'm just kind of like, I don't care. But I don't really share this online, which is kind of like a big deal, because like it is your personal issue, but the moment that you bring it online, like you're kind of like inviting the world into that situation. So there's that. But so yeah, I do admire people who are self-sufficient, people who inspire me. Yeah, I think I do. Like people who inspire me. I think this is a very common thing. Like you have somebody who inspire you, and like that person impacting you some way. But it is what's saying here. Motivated by respect. I will say that I don't think that is the case. I mean, I want people in my life who I respect, and I want to be respected. But it's not really like up there as far as like the way that people kind of like exist in my brain. I think there are other things that I think of first. For example, like and maybe this is kind of like superficial, very shallow for me, but shallow of me. But I think I value how pleasant the person is, and I'm not talking about manners necessarily, just how enjoyable can somebody's company be. I mean, I still have like my morals, my values, so that is those are still kind of like, I'm also taking them into account when it comes to these situations. But I don't know, I think that I'm kind of I don't know, I think the days of me caring, being, I don't know, because it's not so much, it's not that I changed my mind, but I don't know, I think I'm tired. That's kind of like the explanation I have, that I'm kind of like tired of suffering and of being upset about things. So my brain right now is just like, whatever, but not in a numbed way. I'm not. I think I genuinely stopped caring, and that sounds bad, I know, but it's working out for me so far. So let's go. They're drawn to people who give them the sense that they know something, or they who have an exceptional understanding of some arcane corner of this world. I mean, it could be fascinating, but I don't know. I think I'm thinking like entertainment, an element. I don't know, like it can be fascinating. I don't mind hearing people monologuing, like, so if they have something to talk about, like, and they're very interested in that. I find that endearing as well. I find, like I actually want to listen to the whole thing. But as I said, like I don't necessarily want to have to, chime in at any time, because, if we're talking about something specific that, I might not. But yeah, so I don't know, I wouldn't say this is like top 3 analysis. Oh, there is, something called star. Oh, I think I've heard of this app before. Okay, so Capricorn in friendship. Why are Capricorns like as friends? Capricorns are ambitious and have pushed themselves to succeed work ethic that can often rub other people the wrong way. I will say that this definitely sounds, like me when I was, my late teens, early 20s. That I was really pushing myself, but in my case, it was really bad for me. So it was not healthy, and it was not getting me anywhere closer to where I wanted to be. So I kind of like ended up dropping that. But it was something that I consider at a certain point. Anyways. And also, like, I totally get why, because I will say that if you kind of like speak to me in the way that I guess like I would speak back in those days, I would, it's not that I would lose respect for you, like not so much, but I would be like, you're naive summer child, what exactly, like you still, and also there's a lot of privilege, sometimes it contains in these talks, because people come from like they have different starting points, and they have different responsibilities they have to have. So somebody who does not have that many responsibilities, and it's kind of like has, for example, their financial situation taken care of, and they are talking about pushing it. I'm kind of like, yeah, you're not pushing it though, right? You're not. But yeah. So, but they do have a tender side. They can be deeply emotional under the glossy veneer of adulting. Their softness gets buried in rocky terrain of the exterior. Capricorns are taciturn by design, but not by nature. Interesting, I like this. They're very practical. It may seem like they don't really care about their friends' feelings, but they will do anything they can to help them succeed. Capricorns don't want to be wasteful with their resources and think about how each of their actions will affect the future. Something I'm working on, to be honest. I think, today I was going through my credit card, like my expenses for this month, and it's kind of crazy because I was basically, what was that accent? Because I was looking at things and it was just like something small here and there. How did it add up to this much? So basically, like for the next month, I'm going to be more reserved, and yeah, I'll be even more reserved. So let's wait and see kind of like how that turns out. But it is something that is on my mind, and something that like it's kind of like worth seeing for me, because that's also sometimes like the hard part, because like I'm gonna save money, but for what? Like very likely I'll be able to buy a house in this market, and I needed much more. But you keep on saving, you don't give up. But there are these questions in your head, like, shouldn't I just kind of, I don't know how long I'm going, how many years I have left, why don't I enjoy myself? But I'm working on this particular types of affirmations in my head, and we're making progress. Capricorns are also very emotionally dependable. They will be there for you when you need them, and you can be certain that they won't freak out on you. They know that being dependable is a sign of respect. Being dependable is a sign of respect. That is interesting. I never thought about it this way. It shows that I respect them. So yeah, I hope that I am a dependable person. I don't know if I am. Maybe I am a dependable person. It's just that I can be kind of like very flimsy with some of my attitudes, some of like the ways that I'm existing, but like there's room for both of those things to be true. One doesn't have to kind of like counter the other necessarily. So yeah, so I'm very practical. Am I practical? I would say so. I just feel like this whole read, I don't relate to this at all. I don't know, but like I don't know, just like sides from a person that I'm like, yeah, I don't think this is the most best indication of who I would be as a person. You can be deeply emotional. I can be deeply emotional. I think that I can really dig deep into like my brain and where I'm at. And I think that this helps me kind of like interact with other people because I kind of like I already have a starting point, in terms of like noticing like where they are coming from. Okay, so they're practical, waste point of resources. Will I do whatever I can to help people succeed? Yes, but I will say that I haven't really been tested regarding like this particular thing. Like I'm looking at my life and like yeah, it hasn't really happened. So I don't know. I would like to say yes, but I would need, a situation in which I have to be selfless to pop up to know if I'm going to kind of like comply or not. Because there's a real answer. There's a real chance that that I would just kind of like remove myself from the situation. It doesn't have to be kind of like all at once. It can be kind of like a discreet removal, but it is something that I don't know, 'cause sometimes I imagine, like conflicts, not conflicts, but like more like conflicts of interest, not, confrontation necessarily. And I just remove myself from those situations, like talking about me, other people in my life. I don't know, I do that a lot. And I have like no reason not to do that more because every day it just gets, it just proves that is kind of like the best thing you can do sometimes. So I don't know, I have friends and I'm there for them, but like there's probably an asterisk there, to be honest. I don't know what, but I don't think that it is that bad because the friends I have, like they have other friends, so I'm not like the person they're depending on. So maybe like knowing that it helps me kind of like be removed from the situation or not. I'm just excusing myself, I know, but so yeah, maybe I should excuse myself. Yes, I'm a piece of shit, and that's that. And I don't even know if I have the intentions of like becoming less of a piece of shit. But yeah, so are Capricorns loyal? Capricorns are incredibly loyal friends and expect much from other people. As much. Oh, that is not a person who I would probably get on with, to be honest. I need low expectations all around. Capricorns have a deep need for security. They like structure and repetition. Capricorns want to know what to expect in stable scheduling increments. They need to know that their environment is reliable. Capricorns need purpose in everything they do, so they will only dedicate themselves to people, projects, or ideas that revolve around their values. I guess like I feel like that is to an extent like everybody. Because sometimes people they do things because of money, but like if that is a value that they have, they are like operating within their values. But I will say that the need for security is one that I relate to. I think that right now I'm the healthiest I've ever been in terms of like existing without feeling that everything's a threat. So I do relate to this, but I find that for me is kind of like I find security in the unexpected. I think sometimes what I need is a break from my schedule. Like that is the thing that will make me feel, I guess, secure. Because I feel like that my sense of security involves me as a person, and me as a person involves me kind of like having the freedom to just like be who I am without being who I am without being kind of like burdened by the constraints of polite society, let's say. I just need I just kind of like I need the freedom. And the freedom is kind of like a value that I have, right? So I need the ability I need to convince myself that I am free to kind of like do whatever at whatever, even if like that means that they I don't know, I just thought like something completely random, just two people who have existed in my life in a parasocial type of way. And I don't know, it just reminded me of that. And it's true, like I need to feel like I'm free to do whatever, even if I'm not gonna do anything. But yeah, so that was Capricorn. So I already read Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn. There's Aquarius here. So my Jupiter is in Aquarius. So is my Uranus. So is my 5th house. yeah, so those are my, so let's read Aquarius. So my brother is an Aquarius, the water bearer. But yeah, so let me just figure out what uh, Jupiter. So Jupiter. In astrology, Jupiter is the planet of abundance, growth, wisdom, luck, representing where you find opportunities and expand your horizons. It takes about 12 years to orbit the Sun, spending roughly 1 year in each zodiac sign. Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces, is expansion. So signifies growth. So Jupiter indicates areas of life where you experience fortune and higher learning, philosophical, religious, or spiritual growth. The Great Benefic. It is considered a lucky planet, aiding to wealth, fame, and overall happiness. Magnifies situations. Jupiter enlarges all situations, including negative ones, necessitating self-awareness, integrity, and moderation to avoid overindulgence. Jupiter return occurs roughly every 12 years, bringing new opportunities and new perspective. Oh yeah, why is like that? Something retrograde, Mercury retrograde. What does that mean? Like we're gonna learn at some point, yes. As of May 2026, Jupiter is in Gemini, having moved from Taurus in May 2023. Jupiter signification by sign, general trends. So water signs is often emphasizes emotional growth, nurturing, and material stability. And Sagittarius, Gemini, the pioneer signs, often emphasizes growth through action, communication, and exploration. Interesting. So this is growth. So Uranus. So Uranus in astrology is the planet of revolution, innovation, sudden change, and individuality, ruling modern Aquarius and the 11th house. Okay. It is a generational planet that takes 84 years to orbit the Sun, spending roughly 7 years in each sign to disrupt status quo and foster technological advancement. Modern ruler of Aquarius. Uranus is associated with humanitarianism, progress, and unorthodox thinking. The Great Awakener. It creates and shakes up and forces change to break free from limitations. General impact. As another planet, it defines the progressive, rebellious, and technological trends of a generation. Natal position. In birth chart, it shows where an individual is unconventional or meant to break with traditional boundaries. So all this is my brother. Okay, so Uranus. So it was in Taurus and now it is in Gemini. Don't know what that means, but we're gonna learn. So Aquarius. Oh, let me read. Zodiac. So Aquarius, January 20th to February 18th, is the 11th zodiac sign represented by the water bearer, a symbol of innovation and humanitarianism. As a fixed air sign ruled by Uranus and Saturn, Aquarians are known for being independent, intellectual, and progressive thinkers who value freedom and societal improvement. Oh, I am a person who values, I think that my care for societal improvement is kind of like big enough that it could argue that it's a part of my personality. Like I think that could be the case. But let's read more. So humanitarian and visionary, deeply concerned with improving society, they often act as advocates for change. Independent and unique, they embrace their individuality and are often described as unconventional or eccentric. Well, I have been described as eccentric, and intellectual and analytical. They are deep thinkers who enjoy intellectual conversations and innovative problem solving. Social and detached. While friendly and communal, they can sometimes appear emotionally aloof or stubborn. Fixed sign. Oh, I do relate with this. So Aquarius in life. In love, they need intellectual stimulation, friendship, independence within their relationships. In career, they excel in fields related to technology, humanitarian efforts, activism, and creative arts. Dislikes, limitations, boring routines, professional broken promises, and emotional demands. I would say that I don't appreciate broken promises, because sometimes people make a promise to you that's like no reason, so like you're just setting yourself up for failure. So don't say anything. That's basically kind of like my go-to thing. Like if you don't have to say something, don't say something, and then you're not breaking the promise. But yeah, so anyways, I do dislike limitations and boring routines, and emotional demands. So let's read. So the water bearer. So January 19th, February 18th for 2026. Element air, modality fixed, ruling planet Uranus. Aquarius traits, purposefully esoteric, no feelings, just concept. Oh, this one I kind of, actually no, I think I'm kind of like feelings and concepts. Actually believes in conspiracy theories, more in love with humanity as a whole than individuals. Oh, this is, I relate to this one. Always feels like an outcast, fetishizes personal freedom. Yeah, I will say that that's definitely me. Because, I don't know, it's just, sometimes you fantasize about something for your whole life, and then when it actually happens, you realize that it's not really all that you kind of like thought it was going to be. This is kind of like me with, autonomy, because, I was giving a lot of autonomy and freedom when I was a teenager, more than like your average teenager would get. And I really enjoyed that state. But it's one thing for you to kind of like be an independent teenager than it is for you to be an autonomous adult, like two different things. And one of them is like way more demanding than the other, and you just have to go through it to get to the point where you kind of like realize that you kind of like you're losing a lot. And particularly, like, it's not just like in physical things, but like emotional things as well. Being the only person to kind of like validate yourself emotionally, which is technically where I'm at. But I'm here after like many years of struggling and kind of like having to kind of like create the situations in my life where I could where I would be validated by the people around me. And I can finally talk about this because for so long I felt so embarrassed that was me, that I was, externalizing my satisfaction, my sense of self and satisfaction, because that is not a very like leader like from my part, like that is not very and I wanted to be this kind of like this pinnacle of a person, and involve like me kind of like being self-sufficient for sure, but also kind of like independent from like anything and everything. But that is just impossible. You can like, unless you decide to go live in the woods, you kind of like you make your own home and you produce your food, like if that is not you, like you are not self-sufficient, you're always depending on somebody. And that's not even like a bad thing, because the fact that I'm like externalizing this need, it means that I can use my time for something else, which is kind of like what I want. I don't want to be out there producing my own vegetables, like I'm glad I have people who are doing that for me so I can do other things. So yeah, so basically kind of like accepting that like you're not going to be the self-sufficient person that you thought you were when you were a teenager, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. In a certain way, it can kind of like connect you with the world around you. So yeah, I don't believe in conspiracy theories. Like I have a version of that, like don't, like if you want to believe it, okay, but like do it in the corner, like do it over there. I don't want to see it. And always feels like an outcast. Don't I feel like an outcast? I don't think I do, but I definitely feel like I did when I didn't feel like an outcast when I was a teenager, but I felt like that there was something off between me and people, like there was something about their experiences, that didn't really make sense to me, as a whole. And that is kind of like something that I have to kind of like work on to this day. Because sometimes I'm like, am I isolating myself from people? I'm not doing it on purpose necessarily. Sometimes I used to when I was younger, but like these days I'm not doing it. And I have to be careful because it's a slippery slope. You start by kind of like cutting contact with like, like one area of your life, and before you realize like everything is a mess. Like you're kind of like completely isolated, living in your own head. And that is kind of like not what I want for me. So famous Aquarius, don't care. Best careers: professional dilettante, bohemian, casual anthropologist, writer and leader, artificial intelligence, armchair philosopher. I would like to be an armchair philosopher. Like if I could make money from that, that would be pretty fun. Being bohemian, like that is also something that sounds more fun than it actually is, but like seems fun. What kind of person is an Aquarius? Aquarian are archetypal outcasts. This doesn't mean that they are loners. In fact, they thrive in large groups. Yeah, I don't know if I do. Charming you with their peculiar sense of humor, intriguing you with fun facts about the history of disposable straws, or convincing you to join their reading groups. The alienation they feel is often self-imposed, a result of their knee-jerk contrarianism rather than a lack of social intelligence. I think I used to be more. It's kind of interesting because I do remember very clearly when I was 17, I made a video, things that I hate, and the topic was contrarians. I have like lots of these videos, but that was one of the first ones, and because it can be annoying, when you're just doing it for the sake of doing it. Although to be fair, sometimes it's good to have somebody who's kind of like being the opposing voice, like in our discussion and kind of like a conversation. But it can be very annoying, can grow tired very quickly. So I don't know. Also, like, it has to do with like the reasoning behind them being contrarian, because every notion, every idea, there's like things that it could do better, it could be better. So like you can criticize things, but like actually bring an argument to the table instead of just resonating something that you heard once. Anyways, I'm not getting heated, but like I already talked about this way too much. But I will say that like the whole alienation thing, that I felt like it was it was kind of like in this vein of being kind of like self-imposed. Like I removed myself from society. Nobody kind of like pushed me away, so it was kind of like that. They try to be weird. Interesting. Koreans hang grapefruit rinds from the wall and call it art. They pretend to actually like noise music. They saturate their internal monologues with SAT words. This is interesting because like they try to be weird. I think that there was a point in time where I was trying to be weird. I mean, there are things about me. I'm neurodivergent, so of course there's some things that I've done since I was a kid that were kind of like weird. But I definitely feel like I was kind of like embellishing some things because they were weird, and I kind of like found myself being kind of like the weird person. So there's that. But I don't know, like they're very quirky is what I'm getting, and I don't really love it. My brother is kind of quirky like this, so you could say that there is a pattern there. Intelligence to them means the ability to formulate the most unpopular opinion possible. In their white shit, they dye their wool black just to prove a point. They are destined to live their lives in direct opposition to the current world. Okay, I'm gonna continue this later. Bye.